doesn't. We know how to make things up on the spot, you and I.
We sure do. So I think we're live. I say this every week. I'm like, I think we're live.
And it says live up in my screen here.
Yes. Yeah. So I think, it's a casual chat. It's just us girls just chatting away, Annie.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Totally.
But I am so excited to talk with you about thought leadership. I mean, you and I have been long friends, and when I think of leadership, I think of Andrea Kennedy. So I'm excited.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
So if people are watching, they can jump in and ask questions as well. So hopefully it's being live streamed to LinkedIn, to Facebook, to Twitter, Periscope, and to YouTube. So all over the place. I know.
Good.
Look at me.
We're social famous.
We are social famous. We are.
Totally.
So let me introduce you, because at least, if this isn't live, then I get to record it anyway. So this is my great friend and co-presenter, co-strategist, co-everything. Well, not co-everything, but my great friend, Andrea Kennedy. Andrea and I both teach the digital marketing certificate at Ontario Tech. And Andrea also wears many hats, including strategist and business advisor at her own consultancy called Spread Your Word Marketing Group. You're an educator, a speaker, a community champion. You have been the president of the Whitby Chamber and a board member for the Whitby Public Library. And you also bravely ran for mayor of Whitby, which I was so proud to tell everybody that you had run, because that's not easy to do, to put yourself out there. And so I'm very proud of you. I know, Andrea, I've already written this down, that I know you're a savvy strategic marketer, and I know you as to be one who asks the tough questions. And so I am so excited to talk to you today, because you're my girl when it comes to all things content and thought leadership and all that kind of fun stuff. So,
well, thank you. It's you and I have been on a wild ride over the last number of years, and we've done a lot of cool things together. Lots of great projects. It's always been my joy and my pleasure to be alongside you in everything that we do and to support you where I can.
Yeah.
I learn everything. I learn from you every time we get together, and I learn from everybody that I meet every time that I meet somebody new or I meet someone again for the very first time, which I really think is one of the things that makes me a good strategist, in fact. And I think that that's something that you share with me, is that we're lifelong learners. And I think in this industry and in this world today, that stands us in good stead. You really can't be someone who wants to dig in the claws and stay a while, because the world's just not going to give you that option anymore. Or they will, but it'll just keep moving past you, and suddenly you'll be in everyone's rearview mirror.
Yeah, and as teachers, as instructors, and it was kind of coincidental they brought us together at Ontario Tech, but it was I was thrilled when they brought you on board, that for us to co-train together, it's kind of cool how we sort of riff off each other. So I also see my friend Amy Riddell is on live, so I know.
Hi, Amy.
Yes, so hi, Amy, one of my great friends, Amy, who runs the most amazing conferences. I love her conferences.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about thought leadership, which we know is kind of a buzz term that people kind of use a lot. But what do you think, and hopefully you have the answer to this, what is thought leadership to you, Andrea?
So it's interesting. I feel like if I could take a little step back, thought leadership as a term started, really came to the fore when content marketing really began to take off, and the notion of building a platform was new and exciting. And like the very first days of TED, for instance, is a great place to look at for that kind of thing. But even the notion of writing a blog or doing an email newsletter, what we talked about in the marketing space was owning a thought, like owning your space by sharing your knowledge and your understanding. So when I think of thought leadership, I believe that we all have a lot of thoughts that we have access to, but we also have just the ones that are just our own. And I think the challenge today in terms of thought leadership is really about finding and standing in the value of what you uniquely see, your observation of the world, your assessment based on your experience, your expertise, all of those, that professional opportunities you've had, personal opportunities you've had. And thought leadership really now comes from, we want people that we can believe know what they're talking about. You used to be able to parrot. There were a lot of people that would pick up a little piece here, pick up a little piece there, jazz it up and call it, I know this stuff. I think that the market, I think you would agree with me, is a little bit savvier today. There's so much content. We want to hear from people who really have walked the walk and are talking the talk. And those are who we are now deeming as the leaders. And then there's a lot of other people that know a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that answers your question, but thought leadership for me is standing in your value, knowing what you know, owning what you know, and knowing it very, very well, being prepared to share it with people in a way that maybe they haven't thought of before. And it's an opportunity to create a bridge between the knowledge and expertise you have and the desire that other people have to know it. And that's really where the sweet spot is, I think.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I think that there's a lot of people, though, that are afraid. Like, what do I know? What do I, why would anybody listen to me? That's really the reason why I started this series of conversations, is because the more people I talk to, the more transparent people are being with me. Like the clients that I'm writing their LinkedIn profile for, these people are telling me, and these are senior leaders that will, kind of confidentially tell me that they too feel like, why would anybody listen to me? Which I think is so interesting.
And I think that's something that we all struggle with. Just that's not something that's unique to our professional lives. I believe that we feel that really hard in our personal lives now. I mean, it's fascinating when we talk about leadership, and we talk about platforms. Like everybody, we're all media giants now if we're on multiple platforms. Like my kids are out there on Instagram, and they're really thinking about what they're posting out there because they're thinking about the reaction. And now that's you from a strategic place wanting to lead a particular experience with your thoughts and your actions. So that's, to me, I find that so fascinating. It is hard, and I'm not going to say that it isn't, to put yourself out there. But the hard part is when you put yourself out there expecting that everyone's going to love it. Mm. And I think that the big shift for me came certainly in my own life and in my own career and in my own experience, and understanding that I'm as much for a group of people as I am not for another group of people. And once I was able to let go of the notion that my thought leadership meant that everybody had to like it or it wasn't valid, that freed me up to just say, no, this is the stuff that I know, and to not feel like I need to make apology for the stuff that I don't. And I feel like when we're talking about leaders and professionals, because I have the same challenge in my business. My work is to work with, owner operators of their own largely professional firms or organizations or not-for-profits. It's like, well, who are you really? What do you stand for? Not what do you want? What does everybody want you to stand for? Not what you think everybody wants you to be. Who are you really? Because if you can't be that, when the chips are down, it all falls apart. And who you are really and what you really believe and what you really stand for can't ever be wrong. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, right? That's the hard thing, is it can't be wrong. If it's who you are and what you believe and what you will stand beside, it can't possibly be wrong because it's yours. So you have an opportunity to share that to others, a choice. But there can't be you can't think that. Well, people will say that all the time. What they really need to say is, you shouldn't think that because I don't think that. And then the question becomes, is that somebody's opinion that should change your worldview? I think in some cases, new data, new worldview, new things to stand by, certainly. But the core of who we are, I don't think changes too much. And it's giving people sometimes, I feel like, permission. That people want permission from a professional that says it's okay to not know everything. And it's okay to own real knowledge in this area and then run with it. You don't have to know everything else. You just have to have a plan for answering those questions when those questions come. But I think for a long time, especially as you get farther up in the leadership chain in large corporations and organizations, and I'm not 100% sure that it is exactly the truth, but it's certainly been the perception, and it's a persona and an image that's been carefully crafted and cultivated by people who don't know a whole ton. That to say, if I got here, it must be because I know all this stuff. And the fact is now, you don't have to know everything. You have to be smart enough to know what you know. And I think you have to be smart enough to know what you don't, and be willing to own both.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would you agree? Like, do you find in the conversations that you have with some of your like when you're working with your clients, do they feel a little bit relieved when you give them permission to not have to be everything?
Yeah, I think they feel a little relieved that I will sort of say as the housekeeping. Listen, a lot of people that I've worked with feel the same way when it comes to showcasing their accomplishments. And I think that like great leaders, as we know, are the great leaders really, to your point, assemble a great team. They don't have to know everything. They partner with a great team. And then they don't necessarily take all of, I think the great leaders don't necessarily want to take all the accolades for it as well, because they realize that it wasn't just them that was the result of the success of the program. In some ways, as marketers, we sort of have to toot our own horn and sort of say, yes, I was responsible for leading this kind of thing, or I was a part of a team that did these things, but to showcase those things. So yes, I do find that there is a bit of a relief that we are talking about the imposter syndrome, which is Steve Jones's question here about the struggle about the imposter syndrome and being, what and how does that fit within sort of thought leadership? And what advice do you have for those that are not maybe congruent with the imposter syndrome and thought leadership? But
so I feel like imposter syndrome, when I have had it, so I'll just take a quick step back, right? I ran for mayor.
Yeah.
I ran for mayor.
That was really I was so proud of you, because that's a pretty big thing to do.
Yes, thank you. And it was, and I didn't do it lightly. I had my own personal reasons for doing it. But what I didn't do, and which caused a lot of some of this incongruence that you speak of, Stephen, is people that I would meet that would say, but shouldn't you be a school trustee first? Shouldn't you be a local councillor before you run for mayor? Shouldn't you have done these other things before you shot the moon to this role? And fair. And the notion of, so then there's that you're not doing it the way everybody else is doing it. So maybe that's not, do you have permission to do that? And if Leslie knows anything about me, it's like, I'm not that, do you mind if I, right? And I haven't always been that way, but I have become that way, certainly. So in that experience, it was fascinating. And then the first few times that people asked, I sort of stuttered a little to try to come up with an answer. But then what I did in some cases is I just sort of turned it around. And I was like, why do you think that would have helped? Understand what it is that other people are asking. What does it mean? Like, if I'm feeling like, okay, then, so in those moments where I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have, maybe I don't belong here. It was like, well, wait a minute. What is it about doing it that way that you feel would have prepared me to do the role that I believe I'm trying to get to? And secondly, what do you think a mayor does? Because, right, our understanding of what people actually, quote unquote, do is very, very different. And what people didn't know necessarily was I had been the executive advisor to the mayor previously. So I had worked in lockstep with the current mayor for a chunk of time and spent time in town hall and spent time in town council. But for some reason that didn't feel like enough. But for me, that's where I armed myself with the knowledge of what it was that I knew that I was undertaking, a strong understanding of the skills that I brought to the table, and a recognition that a lot of the people that were going to judge my right to be there themselves did not even understand what it was I was trying to do or why I was doing it or what the role was really supposed to be. So when you bash up against other people's perceptions of something, I can't change them. I can't change their minds. So it's really becomes a challenge from an imposter syndrome point of view of believing that you belong. Because truly in marketing, and we say this all the time, you're coming up with messaging. If you don't believe it, if you can't believe it when you say it, if you can't live it, you can't possibly ask other people to believe it too. So that challenge around, knowing what you know what you know. The question is, are you okay with allowing other people to see that you don't know everything? and to accept that there are going to be dissenting opinions always. But that doesn't mean you're not knowledgeable. It just means maybe there's more data you haven't heard from, but from where do you stand today, from what it is that you know right now, this is what you know, and this is what you believe. So from a thought leadership perspective, I always strongly urge, like, do your homework. And from an imposter syndrome point of view, be honest and humble about what your skills are, and humble enough to know, like, don't overshoot it. If I didn't think that I actually had the chops to be the mayor, having stood in lockstep with the current mayor, I would never have done it. I would not have gone up against possibly another mayor somewhere else. But this mayor, I knew what my competition was, and I knew what was on the table. Did I still sometimes, it's funny because I had a girlfriend that I turned to at a point in time when someone that I really believed in totally went and supported the other candidate. Somebody that I fully expected was going to be supportive of me, if not really publicly, at least privately, went and publicly supported the opponent of whom she had been really vocally in opposition to previously. Mm-hmm. So that imposter syndrome got me like, okay, maybe I'm not supposed to be here. Because I trusted that person's opinion. And then you realize that everybody's motivated by different things. And what my best friend in Winnipeg told me, my best friend who's like teaching school from her dining room table right now. But at that point in time, I phoned her and she's like, it's none of your damn business. I'm like, what are you even talking about? She's like, this person has completely betrayed me. She's like, other people's opinions of you are none of your damn business.
Right. Yeah.
Why are you being, you're not being very sympathetic. Yeah. Like, I'm really upset here and you're not at all stroking me. She's like, who cares?
Right.
You're gonna quit because of that? Like, then you don't belong.
Right.
But it's like, oh, I got some of my own tough love back. It was harsh, Leslie. I won't lie. I'm usually on the giving end of that kind of language and that kind of advice. Yeah. And I love her and she knows me and I take it in the spirit in which it was intended, which was get over yourself, get over everybody else. You know what you're doing. Focus on you. Go and get it done.
Yeah.
But wow, that was hard. And so I really did. I struggled. But at no point in time, actually, interestingly enough, did I think that I didn't know my platform. I knew what I was talking about. I'd done the research. I'd done the thinking. So that was comfortable. But you're always going to have your confidence shaken. The world exists to shake our confidence and our resolve. So it's, and we're always going to have those moments where we're like, I can't possibly. Right. And then you go, for me, it's like, but if I don't do it, who else will?
Yeah.
Maybe nobody will. And then this idea or this thought or this movement or this organization, this business, it'll never get going if I don't do it. And that's the truth.
Right. Yeah.
So I hope that answered Stephen's question. I'm not sure if it did completely, but yeah.
Well, I think just to even in that thread of the conversation, because you and I are so close and we've had this conversation over and over again, and we tell the clients or learners in the program too, is that sometimes it's okay not to be liked by people, which is horrible for me. Like it's somebody
so hard for you.
So hard for you. I hate it when people don't like me. But you've really encouraged me to embrace the fact that you have to stand for something.
If you don't stand for something, you don't stand for anything.
Yeah. And it's okay for people not to like me, which again is something that I still work on. But that there is a fit for me with the people, there are people are going to like me or they're not going to like me. And if they don't like me, that's okay. They're going to find someone else that will provide. Yeah. Because as long as I'm coming from a place of service, as long as I'm doing my best to show up, then that's all I can do. Right. That's all.
And that's exactly it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we can all only do as much as we can do with the resources and from the place that we are today. It's not rational to look at somebody for us in our world, let's say like a Chris Brogan or a Seth Godin and say, why can't I do what they do? I've met Chris Brogan. I have a picture. I have a picture of Chris Brogan and I with baby carrots up our nose, sitting at a table. Yeah. Like I've met him. Like he's just a totally normal guy, but he has committed and he put in the work. He dove into thought leadership when it was really at its cusp with trust agents. And that's what he talked about then, which was something that was brand new for everybody to consider, is that you can't just be a talking head. You need to be somebody that people can trust. And if you can earn trust, now you've got something to build on. And that's, we practice that in our smaller spheres. And then now it's, can you build trust at scale? That's where you get into true thought leadership that moves. But we're not meant to move everyone, because not everybody cares about all the same things that we do.
Yeah.
And so, if you don't stand for something, you don't stand for anything. And I truly believe if you're not pissing somebody off, you're not working hard enough. You have not put a stake in the ground, because you should be in opposition to somebody's somewhere. Because if everybody's getting along with you, then you're as plain as vanilla, and that's nothing to write home about these days. That's not what gets eyes, ears, and attention. Trust and loyalty, even more so than that.
Yeah,
because this goes
like nobody shares meh. Like people want to share something that either really ticks them off or really makes them happy, but nobody shares like vanilla meh. Okay, so it is. So it's there.
And so the interesting thing too about ticking people off is sometimes that gives you, one, they're looking. They read it. You got them. Gotcha. Like you gotcha looking. Now they disagree. Now, if they reach back out to share this disagreement, they have to think about you. They have to think about what you're saying. Some to a degree, don't get, trolls are trolls, but you know what I mean? There are some people who will engage and get right into it and say, I disagree with you, and this is why. And that is like an open door invitation for you to get some new data about another point of view that maybe you haven't entertained, but two, to give you an opportunity possibly to share some more data with somebody who's like, well, I never thought of it that way. I still don't like it. Fantastic. Good for you. If you ever change your mind, here's where I am. You know where to find me. Otherwise, happy days. Off you go. If you know anybody that is also in severe opposition to you, send them my way, because maybe we get along, right? Like it's a fascinating dance that you can play with this idea of not being liked by everybody, but how powerful that can actually be, and how useful negative press can actually be for you as an individual or an organization, because it gives you insight into a whole area that you wouldn't otherwise know, because the people who like you aren't sharing that stuff, aren't making you think that way. So you can get complacent too, in terms of thought leadership, in speaking into the vacuum and surrounding yourself and being content with everybody likes what I'm saying, so I must be saying the right thing, and never growing beyond that. I think it's more interesting sometimes to be a little. Well, I think our job as leaders and teachers is to continue to learn to bring new ideas forward that might, in fact, contradict something we used to believe, right? And share that with our faithful fans and followers who will go, but wait a minute, you used to say that was bad. It's like, yes, I did. And now I've learned something new, and I'm going to give you an opportunity now to share it with you if you want to hear it. So we have an obligation as a thought leader to keep learning and growing and expanding our knowledge and changing our, not changing who we are or what we believe, but perhaps changing what we believe. Yes, what we know to be true. If new data comes that changes our worldview, I think we have an obligation to then change that worldview and be transparent about it. An interesting situation that I have come across locally is, there's an author who wrote a book that somebody really likes, a leader in the community really likes, but they read that first book. What they didn't do was read the follow-up book. So even our thought leaders and our academics who become authors and find a stage and a platform have learned they have an obligation to continue to learn, to dig away, even though they put a stake in the ground around this idea. They have to keep challenging it as time goes by to make sure that it's still valid, and have the bravery and the discipline to own it, and then to broadcast that if and when the circumstances change. And now you have to say, and it turns out what I believed with the knowledge I had 6 years ago is no longer true. And here's why I think it's changed, and here's what I think we should do about it. I admire that so much more than one smart idea from whenever.
Right.
And when it's wrong, it's like, nope, and to turn, I built a platform around this. I'm sticking to my guns.
Mm-hmm.
That is, I think every community demands better now of that, because I think we're all learning that we're learning.
Yeah.
And we have to be willing to adjust our worldview, because gosh, if the pandemic has taught us nothing, it's everything we thought that would never change.
Yeah. Oh, no kidding, right?
It changes in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for me, I think once I listened to Brene Brown talk about the man in the arena, that if you're basically not if you're not in the arena with blood, sweat, and it wasn't Brene Brown's quote, it was Teddy Roosevelt's quote. If you're not in the arena with the blood, sweat, and tears fighting the good fight, then everyone else can shut the hell up, quite frankly.
Yes.
Like I find that I was taking feedback as a professional speaker when I was getting the feedback forms, and if someone didn't like me for whatever reason, that's the one I was solely focusing on. Oh, someone said that they didn't like me, instead of the 99% of the people who did. And then I was like, well, then I'm not enough. Then I'm, that I've got to fix whatever's broke. Like I've got to mold myself into what that person wants me to be. Yeah. And I really realized that even though it's hard for me to accept that I'm not going to be a great fit for that person, but that person also isn't the one at the front of the room doing the hard work. So I much rather listen to my peers who might give me constructive criticism on things that I can do better, because they're in the arena fighting the good fight, doing the work, right? Yeah.
That's exactly true.
I think it's really hard for people just to get in the arena in the first place. I think that even though we know, you and I both know, that everybody is a media agency nowadays. These kinds of channels, I mean, you and I having this discussion is, there's no one preventing us from doing this. We can just do this now. And so thought leadership is really, you just own it and go with it. But I think it's really hard for people just to get in the arena in the first place for that fear of rejection.
Right. Not recognizing that the rejection is happening all over the place. It's just maybe not as overt as you think, right? We get rejected all the time.
Yeah.
And I think you're exactly right. And that is exactly true. And I think in some ways, my challenge in the world is I have thoughts, and truly, I am interested in politics. Obviously, I wouldn't have ran for mayor if actually, that's not even true. I'm not interested in politics, but I understand how politics work. Mm-hmm. And I also felt very strongly that if I wanted to have a criticism of the system, if I believed strongly enough to voice an opinion about the way the system works, then I should be willing to put my money where my mouth is. Then get in the system, do it. Because you hear a lot of that exact kind of thing. Everyone's an armchair critic, right? But nobody's, as much as I may disagree with the decisions that are made by politicians all over the place, I know that all of those people that are everyone else has the answers, then do it. Yeah. Then get off your couch, get off your duff. You've got a couple of years, get your campaign together, get your platform together, get fundraising, get some votes, and get elected, and then get it done. But it's a lot harder. Everything is always a lot harder than people perceive it to be, including thought leadership, standing on a stage, the enormous amount of preparedness you have to have, not just even knowledge, but confidence, practice, chutzpah, all of those things. Like, it takes a tremendous amount of bravery and courage to put yourself publicly out there for anything. But you have to be prepared to do it because it's the thing you need to do. Mm-hmm. And that you believe that it's in the best interest of the largest population that you can possibly reach. And with the acceptance that it's you're just never going to be for everybody. In the same way that we go to conferences all the time and we're like, who picked this clown, right? Like, because yeah, exactly. And who's one person who's really exemplified to just to the opposite degree extreme is Gary Vaynerchuk is the first person that just said, you be you, you do you, and fuck everybody else. Yeah. And it works for him. Right. And he's obnoxious to watch, but I can do it for an hour. I couldn't do it for a day, but I can do it for an hour. I could take it for what it's worth, which is also some of its shock factor. That's how he gets you to pay attention, or it's how he did anyway in the beginning. So, you have to have a reason for people to look at you. And even if the reason is shock and awe, They're still looking and they're still listening. And maybe you'll still get a chance to drop a nugget in there that they'll take away with them. Because we always remember something, even from the people we don't like. Sadly, sometimes we remember those things more. And those serve as little nuggets that get filed away. So can you be okay with dispelling, being the person that's giving a transfer of knowledge without it having to be about you? Right. Do they have to like you personally, or is it the message that you're sending? Can you be okay with it being about the content, the knowing, the tip, the trick, the learning, and have it not be about you?
I think for me, that's a big part of it. That's what helped me get over my own like nerves of public speaking. And it was incremental. Like it wasn't as if I went from, I went all of a sudden just to doing keynotes. Like it didn't start like that. It started incrementally, and it was baby steps. It was me talking in front of 10 people and being completely terrified the entire time. But as soon as I reshifted my brain to focus on, this isn't about me. This is about how I want to be of service and how I want other people to empower other people with knowledge. And once I did that, the fear is still there, but it's not as omnipresent. Like it's, I get the nerves every time I speak, every time I get nerves. And then I calm down because I realize they're focusing on the content. Hopefully they're not picking me apart. And if they are,
well,
that's not
that's not, but again, that's not why you're there. And I do feel like if you're not at least a little nervous, if there isn't just a little jitter, and I think there's a difference between like nervousness and anxiety. Like some people are gripped by anxiety around public speaking because the notion they feel exposed, like that's next level. That's, some people really, really struggle. Nerves. I don't want to feel stupid. I hope I don't mess up. Like that's natural. And I feel like if you're not at least a little before you get on stage, or as soon as you take the mic or step out in front of a group of people, then maybe you need to maybe you've lost that edge of why, like the excitement. Because I think on the other side of the nervousness is an excitement of, oh my God, I get to do this. And oh my God, I got to do this. I got to. Yeah. And, then suddenly you're doing it and there's no time for, I got to. And it's just, I get to. Hi. Yeah. I am so happy. And if you can get on, that's for me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy to see you all here. Stop staring at me. Stop staring at me. Do I have something in my teeth? Is my underwear out my butt? Like, what? Like, okay, we're not going to worry about that. Hi, you. Right. I'm here for you. I'm going to talk about something for you. And I hope you get, and it's not me. Same with you.
It's the same thing with clicking send. If there's been a number of times I've written blog posts where I'm like, do I click send on this? Is someone going to say, and I have had that. Of course, you were there I think you weren't in the room with me, but I think I've told you there was one person who, like, when I had written a blog post and someone responded, you get paid for this crap? And I was like, oh, how do I respond to that? And then I just let it lie.
Yeah.
I didn't even respond because I was like, that person's kind of a troll, and they're either looking to like really get me into an argument, or they're looking for me to cower in the corner.
Yeah, 100%.
And any fuel, so I just let it sit there. And people were DMing me, Leslie, what's going on? I'm like, right, like, and I just let it be. But I realized that if I still continue to put myself out there, again, it's little baby steps that people go, oh look, now even when people don't respond to my stuff on social, I'll see them in person. They'll say, I see you're everywhere. I don't know if they think I'm Tony Robbins or something, but it's hilarious because I'm like, it's just me. I'm in my basement with the brick wall. Like, it's not as if I'm doing anything fancy, highfalutin stuff. Right. But it's just me just putting my one foot in front of the other and having fun. I mean, this is the whole point of us even talking, is having fun while we're doing it.
Absolutely. And the reality is it's exactly as you said, you're doing it. Yeah. You're doing the thing that lots of people will jaw about. Yeah. Everyone, I could do that. I should do that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to set up my own channel, and I'm just going to tell everybody, and it's, it's going to be amazing, and everyone's going to watch, and blah, 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 and then I never do it because talk is cheap.
Or they do it once, right? And I just even having things fall flat, right, is like, oh, it didn't work. I put myself out there. I put my shingle out there. It didn't work.
Yeah. And one of the things that I always go back to when I hear people say that is, did you do all the work?
Right.
Did you do all the work, or did you really believe one time? So when you were learning how to skate for the first time, did you just slap on a pair of blades, step on the ice, and expect to be what? Like
Gretzky?
Elizabeth Manley or Gretzky?
Yeah.
One thing there is that management of expectations. I think that's one thing that I do see as some of our generations, we're getting a little bit older. So some of our audiences are a little bit younger now. And there is like that instant gratification. I should be able to do everything all at once. It should all come to me. It should just happen. It's like, oh my goodness. That's not how that works.
Yeah.
It feels like I will say this with all kinds of actual, I'm kind of in awe of the audacity of some of the younger people and the things that they ask for. They've very much grown up in a spheres. If you won't get what you don't ask for. So freaking ask for it all. Like the audacity in some cases of some of these younger startups. I've done a lot of work with tech startups. And so really, really super smart kids who not good social skills and not a ton of life experience. How could you? You're like 18, you've spent your whole life studying to get 99% so you could get into engineering. And now you've got this whiz bang cool idea, which I agree, nifty. How are you going to get that out there? Well, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So you know that, and you're trying to convince me of that, but how's it? Well, as soon as people see it, they're going to want it. What? And I'm going to get investors, and I'm going to get this, and I'm just going to go up. I'm going to show up. You did a session with Bob Weiss, and he does a lot to help businesses prepare to pitch for Dragon's Den. And the rigorous process that he has to go through with those business owners to learn how to talk about themselves and how to pitch and how to ask, how not to expect, but how to ask and value, again, that humbleness to value what you have and a willingness to ask for what you need. That's kind of the secret sauce in that too. It's an interesting place. And to your point, you can't respond to everybody that has nothing but criticism. And I often will say to folks, well, is that somebody whose advice you'd take? Like if you were trying to decide on a new car or life-saving operation, the color of your hair, would you ask that person for their advice? Do you care enough about what they think in that moment? Would you count on them to be knowledgeable, thoughtful, and caring enough to give you good advice? Because if not, do not accept their criticism because that is not coming from a place of wanting to help you be better.
Yeah.
That is just coming from a place of wanting to see their own name pop up on your platform that you've worked hard to build. They want their name and their nonsense to show up. So everyone else can go, oh, look what Jason from Timbuktu wrote about her. Oh, that's not very nice. So often when I see those kinds of comments on other people's feeds, especially if it's people that I know, I won't challenge that person, but I will refute it. And I do think that we all have an opportunity to do that, to support one another. That's the other part of thought leadership. You'll find, like, as you know, right, in the speaker world and in that thought leadership world, it's a relatively tight group and they're very supportive of one another because it's a slog. You're all in the arena bloody together. It's like, oh, dude, you got some blood going in your eye there. Let me get that off for you. Do you need a Band-Aid? Like, because there's a sympathy and a generosity that has to happen in that space for it to work.
Right.
And not everybody's out there to actually, like, the thing I would ask that guy, you get paid for this shit? It's like, you got paid nothing to read it. Like, why are you here?
Yeah.
Like, why are you here? Yes, I do.
Why are you here? Yeah.
Why are you here? How did you find me? Is that all you had to do today? I hope you feel better. Like, and it's not about you, right? That's a really big piece of it. And you said that before, when you realized it wasn't about you, when you realized it truly is, how can I be of service? How can I help other people? For me, it's how can I take something that feels, it's funny in marketing, right? Something that feels so huge, but then gets treated so, like, being so insignificant.
Right.
It has such a crucial role to play in every part of our life, quite honestly. We're always marketing all the time, but certainly in business, they're like, it's massive, I don't understand it. And then you get it, oh, I can do it myself. Those are two opposite things. And if you Google marketing for small business on the internet, you're like billion hits. Sift through it. Go ahead, right? So for me, it's about helping other people understand exactly who they are first, exactly what business they're in, because it's really never the business they think they are. It's, like you're not really in insurance. You're actually in the business of caring and looking after people. So, all of a sudden it's like, well, that makes more. Yes. Right. So who are you? What business are you actually in? And then who is it that you live to serve?
Right.
Not sell your stuff to. Who are you trying to hawk your stuff to? But who do you want? When you imagine the people you want to help, what do they look like? What are they doing? Who are they? Because if you can get that, all of a sudden, the answers to so many other questions falls into what to do, when to do it, how to do it, what to say, starts to get a lot easier. But it doesn't get easier if you think about, I want to make money. Who's going to buy my stuff? Now you're just spaghetti at the walls. They're going to try anything and everything because you haven't defined a single thing and you haven't made it smaller.
Well, this is what I was
it isn't all.
And what do we get? What do we hear all the time? But everybody's my target audience, Andrea. I serve everybody. I want to make money.
And those are the people I'm like, if you have an everybody budget, call me. I can help you spend that. We won't even spend it all. That's the thing. But if that's what you think, you have a problem. You need my help. And for you, Leslie, like who's like on LinkedIn, everybody's not your target. You need my help. Let me help you figure out who actually it is that you're for. Because it's exhausting. Like there's just absolutely no way you could serve or be for everybody. I could have a hard enough time being everything to anybody outside of the 3 human beings who rely on me for like groceries. Groceries and clean underwear. Like I couldn't do it for everybody. Yeah. And my life and my business got so much easier when I narrowed my focus for my business all the way down to like a ridiculous level in some people's minds, except I didn't do that willy-nilly. I went out. I took time to, do my homework and network and learn and figure out where was my best fit. I've pivoted in my business numerous times according to both the needs, but also the opportunities, to the point where I know my client as soon as I meet them. Mm-hmm. And I know that you're not as soon as I meet you, right? And I can tell people, I could tell you exactly why they wouldn't be a good fit. And that's a good thing. That makes it so much easier for me, because it means now there's a whole lot of marketing I don't need to do. And some stuff that I really do, I focus my attention where I fish where the fish are. That's my one big marketing, my marketing treatise.
I steal that all the time from you. I stole that from you all the time.
I don't know. I stole that from somebody. Like that's not just me, right? But that just makes good sense. Like if you're fishing.
Yeah. You don't stick in the middle of the desert. You don't stick a fishing pole out in the middle of the Sahara.
No, exactly right. And they're simple. It's such simple wisdom that people just, again, this in my work, what I do with people is I give them permission to say no to 90% of the nonsense that they saw when they went and Googled marketing for small business. Right? I give them permission
to no word. I'm like,
I had my own business coach that was helping me grow my business, and with all the love and appreciation for everything I learned from them, when they told me, well, if you're going to be in marketing, you have to be on all the platforms, I went, and we're done. Because that's just like, that is a critical value crossroad. No.
Yeah.
Everywhere all the time is me, spraying, and it is spray and pray. Mm-hmm. I do what I can do well, and then I crush the heck out of it. And if we think about adding something new, we do so carefully. Mm-hmm. But your business is the business of forward, of progressive. Mine is not. Yours is. My clients aren't. Yours are. So you have to do Clubhouse. Leslie's like, who's going to invite me? Who's going to invite me?
Oh yeah, right? I'm an old hat on that channel already.
Right? And I'm sitting here going,
what's going on?
I don't need to do it. I don't need to do it. Leslie's going to do it. She'll tell me if I need to do it because I trust your opinion.
Yeah.
And you know me well enough that you would say, might be fun for you personally, but not going to help you professionally. Okay, great. I don't need to do it then. right? But insofar as you give people permission to say, I don't know everything, is that okay? Yes, it's okay for you to not know everything. And for me, it's my business is for them to say, but everybody else is putting up billboards. I'm like, but you don't need to. And it's okay.
Right.
And here's what it's not, so we're not going to do it and we're not going to do anything. We're not going to do that. But here's what we're going to do instead. And here's why. And that makes so much, that feels more like us. Yes, it does. When I have clients that say to me, why aren't we on the Twitter? It's like, because you call it that. Like it's clearly not your thing. If you're calling it the Twitter, do you have a Twitter? No. Well, then why would you want to put your business there if you're not even there? You don't even know what's going on. Well, everybody says, is everybody, does everybody know? So that's where I think we all have, if we run our own business, we're all thought leaders to begin with. It's just the question is, because people come to us and they trust us to know. So we have an obligation to do our homework. And then if you're going to broaden that frame, like we do with our teaching, we teach that because we've seen at scale, we can't reach all of those businesses one at a time. So the real secret sauce to being a thought leader and doing things like what you've done with your book and what you do in this platform and what we do when we teach. And that's always been my challenge is I know that this information is important and that it could be really transformative if people understood it. How do you do that at scale? I can't do that one-on-one. I can't do that client by client by client. And if I don't stick with you longer than a 3-month, little mini project in what I do, it's not going to stick because it won't bake in. So, I'm always looking for ways and opportunities to share on a broader stage, because that opens up the door for people to seek me out and have a little bit more information with me, maybe take a class, maybe read a thing or two, or even just have a phone conversation if I can answer a question. I just want to help people feel okay about the decisions that they're making because they know why they're making it. That's it. And I don't have any attachment to whatever it is they decide. I can say, I don't think that that's the right thing for you. Here's why. Tell me why you want to do it. Okay. Well, just consider that here's an outcome that you might not be thinking about that could happen, but you have to try stuff. So I've given you my cautionary tale. I've painted a picture of what I think might be outcomes. You've done some homework. You want to do it? Fantastic. Then let's do it as well as we can. Right? That's sort of always the way that it spins around for me. I try not to get into a situation like I don't work with people who are just going to tell me to do stuff, because the first thing I always ask is, why? Why are we doing that? Why do we do that now? What is it we hope to achieve? How are we going to know if we got there? And those are the questions that drive most people crazy. But I think if you can't answer those questions, then you don't know what you're doing. And you've got an everybody budget and you've got an everybody market in your brain, and you're just going to you could get some quick wins somewhere, but I just don't see that as being sustainable. And I feel like, especially in this market now, marketing is the first place that everybody wants to cut their costs, right? That's where everybody wants to save. Everyone that wants to save money, they consider that to be the fat. The problem is if no one knows about you, they can't come and choose you. So when you cut marketing, you almost close the doors, the online doors to your space or the access to yourself. And no one can afford to take those risks. And I think we have to build small, strong, sustainable platforms that we can, dial up and dial down as need be, so that in times like this, you can pivot if you have to and dial up your online if your offline stuff isn't working. Now is probably not the time to be investing in new in-store signage, but it could be the time to be investing in online signage and online presence. So there's always something to do.
Or now that, we're hopefully getting to the end of this pandemic, maybe now is the time to start thinking of.
Or maybe now's the time to take a walk through your space and say, is this as good as I can make it for people who are going to be dying to come in to see me?
Yeah.
What could I do? What could I change? How could I be more welcoming? Through the eyes of a customer that's coming back from before, and the eyes of a customer who's coming to me for the very first time. How do I show? How do I look?
And how
have I done everything I can?
Engineering? Yeah. How do you reverse engineer? Okay, this is happening, and there's like the people are talking about the roaring 20s again. That this is that people are going to be like, spending more money, having lots of fun. Who knows? You can make it rain. I don't know. To find ways to get people excited about being out. And it's going to take a little transition time, but getting people really excited about where things are going and seeing people and all that other stuff. So, there is a chance now for people to build up the momentum from that perspective too. But
for sure there is. Absolutely. And I think even in so doing, we can't ever now take our eye off the fact that pandemics are possible overnight. Yeah. That within 2 months, we went from fully open to fully closed.
Yeah.
And, now that that's happened, so you could have been, I'm fully offline because my clients only shop with me in store. Whoop, now they went online. Okay, my clients love to shop with me online now. Great. So you put all those eggs in that basket. Now businesses really you have to find that bridge. You're going to have to find that balance. And resources aren't doubled just because you have 2 places where you have to put them.
Yeah.
So it's how are you making, and there's my son.
Hello, son.
This is live, folks. I share an office with my 18-year-old who's in grade 12, finishing his last year with calculus. So it's been a joy. Marketing.
It's quite a long time. So.
Oh yeah. I market to him all the time. Why do I have to do calculus? Because in the big world, blah.
Yeah.
But so my point, resources don't double just because we have twice as much need or twice as much want.
Right.
We have to be smarter than ever, which is why getting your target audience, knowing exactly who you're trying to reach, makes so much more sense than everybody.
Yeah.
Because if we can't just suddenly make it rain all over the place, then we're going to have to exclude some people. Yeah. And when I say exclude, you see this every time we teach our class and I do my little diagram with the target and I'm talking about letting people go. Everyone's like, but you can't let them. It's like, I'm not saying be a jerk and tell them they can't come.
Right.
I'm saying you might not be for them right now. So keep the door open. But don't waste time either one trying to change yourself to be attractive to those people that are way out there and way out there and way out there, because now you're going to have a personality complex. And make it easy for them if they change their mind to come. Mm-hmm. Don't give them a hard time about, you didn't like me before, so now you like me now? Oh, that's no. Hey, we're so glad you found your way, right? What are you doing to keep the line of communication always open? So that the people that are done being the right people for you can leave with no hard feelings. And then anybody that didn't love you before, say that guy that's like, you get paid for this horse shit, suddenly came to you and said, I need help with my LinkedIn profile. Mm-hmm. As tempting as it would be to go, would you like the horse shit profile? Or would you like me? I have several options. Horse shit's one of them. Would you like that? Right? It's a chance for you to we all got to take the high road because it's all about them.
Yeah.
And sometimes you got to eat a lot of crow, but that's okay. But you've got another comment on here. It's not about you. It's what you can offer, contribute. And we stay in that space. We're already, more than 50% of the way there if we shift our frame away from ourselves to other people.
Absolutely. And it doesn't take a lot. And I think the thing that you and I both realize too, because we've been in this digital landscape for a long time, is it's getting more and more fragmented. Yeah. So it makes it even much more important to figure out where your target audience is. Like none of us are Oprah. And even Oprah doesn't get the same reach that Oprah used to get.
No.
It is it's like you say, fish where the fish are. Put your hook out there where your target audience is. I just had a conversation this morning with a client who their target audience keeps saying, we need to be on Facebook. We need to be on Facebook. And it's a B2B thing. And I'm like, stop already. I'll take your money. If you're just handing it out, I'll take it if you want me to. But I'm telling you right now, that's not where your target audience is hanging out. But people are so willing to take money. I've seen this happen time and time again with some of my clients who, if their target audience, I think one guy I was talking with, and his target audience was lawyers and human resource people. And so he went to a digital agency who set him up with this beautiful Facebook company page and all this other stuff. And I thought, oh dear. I mean, the work was beautiful, but he's just talking into the void, right? He's just created content that is not going to reach his target audience. And I felt badly for that person, but
Yeah, because the hard thing in that and what that exact scenario shows you is what you say yes to is what you say no to. So because he said yes to that and he's invested, and now you're talking about sunk cost, people have a very hard time walking away from a sunk cost. I committed to that. It has to work. So they just keep throwing good money after bad, thinking it's like a slot machine. But this thing's got to go. But then I guess for me, the hard part around that is, what are all the opportunities you ignored or you let pass by or that you didn't pursue because you had invested it all over here?
Well, it's sad. I don't think that there's a lot of people, especially in the digital landscape, that know. They just think social media is Facebook. And so I think that that's the unfortunate thing. There's a lot of snake oil salespeople out there that are willing to just sort of be like, you got money? I'll take your money. And I'm going to tell you to do this without really doing the due diligence of asking what you always ask is why? Why are you there? Right? What, you know, for what purpose and what does success look like really at the end of the day too, right?
And I think that's that willingness to prioritize your client's actual success and their knowledge. And, you know, I'm a coach, mentor, teacher, wherever I go. I will always overtell. I've learned now, at least to preface that in many cases. Like, I have something I'd like to share that goes a little deeper about that. Are you open? Would you be interested in hearing about it? Before I used to launch into it, which made me sound a little bit preachy. When I didn't intend to, but it's recognizing not everybody cares, but I only work with people who care enough to want to learn. I want you to know that what you're saying to me is not exactly correct, because I want you to understand why. Because I want you to know when someone else comes to you with that idea, why it's a bad one, because they will. We're not a bad one, not the right one for you, because that happens. Right? You can get in touch with one person and you know, shore their confidence up, and you tell them everything and they're, I got it. But if we don't also give them the language and the knowledge to explain why it's now true for them, when they're confronted, they go, oh, what did Leslie say? What did Leslie say I do?
Yeah.
Right? What was that word we came up with? That's no good. So how are we helping people to bake in new knowledge and new information and internalize it and then find their own language, because we've given them some starting points? Yeah. But I think if we don't, as service providers, there's lots of agencies, it's purely transactional, right? They've commodified online marketing by just making it about investment. This much money gets you this many hits, like as if they can actually, they can give you that many hits, but they can't give you that many sales, right? Is what it is, right? They can, we're going to get you engagement. But if none of that engagement turns into leads, that turns into sales, it's a waste. It's like having 5,000 friends of whom you know none of them.
Yeah.
As Seth Godin would say, like, what's the use of having all these friends if you can't camp out on their couch when you need to? Like, that's exactly, fair point. I love Seth for a lot of things, and I like he's very no nonsense, and that's exactly right. So when we find people that are like, I have to be on Facebook because everybody's there. Right. The question isn't to question whether or not, yes, the data shows everybody's there in some way, shape, or form. The question is, but are they there looking for you?
And can you make an impact? It's a big pond now, and you're just this little fish swimming around in a big pond.
Totally.
We're out of time, Missy, if you can believe it. That hour just went by.
I can totally believe it. But I'm so sad. We didn't even get past question number 1.
We always have so much to talk about, though, but that's okay because really people were here to listen to you talk about thought leadership, and I think we really, really expanded upon that so much. And I think some of the key takeaways is just find you and I know, find who your target audience is, find what you stand for, whom do you serve, and be of service. I think are the sort of the major parts of it. Just do it, baby steps at a time, right?
And be okay with not being beloved.
Yeah.
It's like, everybody doesn't love Oprah. Everybody doesn't love Tony Robbins. Everybody doesn't love everybody. And that's thank goodness. I don't want to have to love everybody.
That's exhausting loving everybody. No, I'm kidding.
It's exhausting loving everybody, and it's exhausting trying to be loved by everybody and appreciate. I want you to respect me enough to respect that I don't maybe share your view.
Right.
And if you don't like me, I'm okay. But it is just respect that I have knowledge and whatever. And that's good enough for me.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. So do you have any the one thing I usually like to ask people, any sort of last mantra, belief, motivational phrase? I think we covered a lot of them. Fish where the fish are is a big one of them. Is there anything else that you, or do you think we covered it all?
Well, I think if in everything that you're doing, just if you come from a place, be of service.
Yeah.
Be of service in this world. The world doesn't need more takers, right? There's lots and lots of those. And I fully believe and embody this in my own life, and I practice this as much as I possibly can. Just if you go forward being of service, you're never going to go wrong.
100%. So, Miss Andrea Kennedy, where can people reach you if they want to hire you, they want to reach you, they want to ask you questions? How can people find you?
You can find me at spreadyourword.ca is the website. I am on Facebook. You can find Andrea in Whitby is one handle for me on Facebook, where you can find me and talk about some things Whitby. I'm going to have to change that though, because I'm not going to be a Whitby for terribly much longer. But no. So you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on LinkedIn, and you can find me on Twitter. I skulk a lot. I chime in every now and then. So yeah, I'm on the standards. I'm not on any of not on all the fringe things. I don't have time for me. So yeah, just LinkedIn's probably the best place to get a hold of me. You can see a little bit about what I've been up to and from a professional standpoint, and the things that I'm interested in are all there, and would love to connect and carry on conversations. Always open for questions at any time, any way that I can help. I'm happy to do so. I don't know about you, but I still get messages from students we taught like 6 years ago that reach out because we said, hey, reach out anytime. And some of them really do. And I love it, and I'm glad. And they ask better questions every time they reach out, so I know they're still learning, and that makes me very happy and very proud of the work we do, Leslie.
Yeah, because if there's something about you, Miss Andrea, you are of service. You always are generous with your thoughts, your knowledge, and that's what I love about you the most, too. So.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming on here and chatting with me. And next week, actually, I'm talking with an interesting gal who she owns her own business now, and she talks about how to get public relations. So PR.
Wow.
Yeah, so she used to be, her name's Christy Laverty, and she used to, as I said, like work at City TV. And so we're going to have a lot of fun talking about how to get more press. So that'll be fun.
Oh, well, I will be tuning in for that one for sure.
Yeah, awesome.
Thank you so much for doing this, Leslie. I appreciate you. And I appreciate everyone that's on here. Thank you for dropping in. Thanks for your comments. Those of you that did chime in, I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Have a great day.
Thanks, honey. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye. See you soon.
Bye.